Other side on that end. I think. What's that? Yeah, right, Calvin. You might as well get ready now. I'll tell them all. 60. Rush, you want to sit round that end over there? Ooh, microphone. Good evening, everyone. Hello. Right, I'm going to pre-warn you. My nephew's going to play a traditional Punjabi drum. The reason for this is because now you've all eaten, I'm sure you'll all look a little bit lethargic. So this might blow a few cobwebs out of your ears. Anyone with any weak heart conditions, please leave the room. Right, I'm going to pass you over to that young man in the corner. Right, Calvin, go for it. Sit down, Josh. Please sit down. Sit down, please. Anyone left out? We're done. Right, okay. Vodka. Right, guys, you okay? Huh? No. All right, see you again. Daddy on the competition, Carlo. Now that bit Thomas, you could possibly take that seat next to Harvin at the front if all right. And then the heater on.
Yeah, it's nice.
Probably about 45 minutes to an hour it could be. I'll try not to. I did last time though, we went on the ages. Okay. Right, so, you ready, yeah? Just set it up so it's just, I just need to click the screen.
So you just need to click the screen.
Thank you, Calvin. Whoop.
No.
Thank you, Calvin.
Yeah.
Taught him everything I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Just click that.
Excellent. Right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and supporting my evening. I'm sure you've got better things to do, but I think the food compensated for it all. Okay. So I'm going to try not to fall over these wires. If I do, hope someone knows their first aid in here. Anyway, right, first of all, I want to say thank you to my family who've come out and helped, and all my friends who've travelled far and wide, the kids who've my oldest son who's just done his GCSE art exam today. He's been sat in for 5 hours, and he's got 5 hours tomorrow as well, so thank you for them for coming out and supporting me, and my wife, mum and dad, and well, the whole gang's out, as you can see. Okay, I'm going to try not to yap on too much today, because I know you've all well fed now, and you all look a little bit a bit tired, and it's nice and warm, by the way. Thank you, Scott, for filming it. Cheers. Thank you. And right, I'm going to start off. If I do go too fast or I divert, please forgive me, because I'm not really used to doing stuff like this. Right. As you know, I recently trekked up to Everest Base Camp with my son, who was 15 years old, and in September last year. I thought I'd share my story, and I thought I'd share the experience with people. Hopefully it might inspire others, or if not, at least I'll get a few quid out of your pocket for it. I'm going to try to stick to my notes this time, because the last time I did it, I didn't stick to my notes, and I went from one slide to another, and I didn't follow script, and I got told off by my assistant over there. So, introduction. Thank you, everybody. And right, we're doing it all for Overgate. Reason why we're doing it for Overgate is the lovely James is stood at the back there. Overgate's a charity which is quite important to me. I mean, a little bit of history about it. It's funded by a local independent charity, funded by donations, helps people in their most needed time of their life, usually towards the end of life, or to make them comfortable through their last days. And I was dedicating this whole event to a chap called Les, which a lot of you might know. He used to work in the sweet shop with a white coat. Les spent his last few weeks in there. He was so private and so how can I say, protective about his condition. He didn't want anyone to know. He literally just told all his family, don't visit me. Even my funeral, he says, don't want anyone to come to it. So he's very private. So I thought, well, now he's gone, he can't stop me from doing this and making a fuss about it. He's probably up there haunting me right now and cursing me, but, you know, Les was such a nice guy, and I thought, you know, he deserved more than just a quiet send-off. So Overgate, we're supporting Overgate. As you can see, there's banners. I think they've got some of their, they're doing a fundraise for the trekking up to base camp. I think they've got a few people going out there. Yeah? I think a few of them came out last time round. Now, I'm going to point you over to this table here, because this is a lot of stuff which I put together, which I'm going to talk about through the night, but feel free to look through the photographs and the pictures. Please don't nick any of my pictures, because they're, well, I'm a bit attached to them now, as I can say. I've got a couple more talks to do, believe it or not. Right, I'm gonna speed through this. Right, so Les was a lovely chap from the sweet shop, and as you can see on the left-hand side of him, on here, is Poor Gemma has been through so much over the last few years. Well, with losing her other half, and then Les coming in to help out. Les was basically a brother-in-law. Now, she's not here today, Gemma isn't, because, well, I threw this event together in about 2 weeks. Hence the dates and everything. I only started selling tickets about a week ago. So I thought I'd dedicate it to Les, and there's a picture of him. Now here, this is a picture of me on the right. As half of you know, I'm a little bit, I like to do stuff out of the ordinary, and every so often I'll choose a challenge, I'll sink my teeth into it, and I'll go out and do it. So the year before last, I ran the London Marathon with a good friend of mine who's over here on the with his hands up there. He dragged me through the finish line, believe it or not. I was just dragging myself back, running around. I think I was at what, mile 24? Mile 24, I was literally crawling on the floor. And as we're just passing, we come up to, I think, close to Big Ben somewhere around it. And I'm filming, as I'm filming all the surroundings of everyone running past. his t-shirt popped up on my phone. I put my phone down and I saw him there and I shouted at him and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I go, "Look, I've had it. I'm just going to crawl to the finish line." So he grabbed me by the arm and literally dragged me through the last mile and a bit, which had I not done that, the bloke with the fridge would have beat me. So there was a Marine running, by the way, with a fridge on his back, and we were making fun of him after 2 miles in, just asking him what the energy rating of the fridge was and if I could put my sandwiches in there and things. And mile 20, I think he overtook me. So, and that's at the point, mile 19, mile 20, I was dying. So he overtook me and he kind of kept me going until I saw Mr. Jita over there, and he dragged me right across it, and I beat the guy by 5 minutes. And it's documented because it was on the BBC News apparently, and they're always right, aren't they? Right. So as you know, I do stupid stuff for charity every so often. So whenever I do ask you for money, it's never just like rattling a bucket in front of you. I tend to kind of stick my neck out a bit. I'm gonna keep right. Here's a few stuff that we've done over the years. So part of the training, me and my son, we did the 2 of the 3 peaks. These are on the left here. It was round about 28 degrees when we did that. I dragged him up one day. I said, "Right, we have to do it in extreme weather. Otherwise, we are going to be in for a shock when we get out there." So the reason behind, it motivated me to take my son with me. The motivation behind it was I wanted him to broaden his horizons pretty much. He was 15 years old and he was showing interest in wanting to do something out of the ordinary. And when he heard about me doing base camp, he showed a bit of interest. So I kind of coached him into it a little bit. So I'm going to try to read off here because, so on the screen here, there's a couple of pictures for our training and preparation. Now my son is, he's been doing Taekwondo for a number of years and he's on this third Dan black belt, which is the middle image there. I forgot my little laser pen. It's just to show that we are quite active all the time. And the other pictures you can see, they're the ones in my gym where I go to, which they're all as equally as crazy as me in that gym. We organise all sorts of silly things like walking from Huddersfield to Manchester. They did a 100-kilometre walk overnight, 24 hours from Huddersfield to Blackpool. I don't know if anyone of you know Scamden steps, the steps around the back of Scamden. We summited them, the equivalent to the summit of Everest, over last December. So starting from the 2nd of December till the 20th of December, we had a small time scale, and collectively we had to climb the steps. I think we did something like 400 climbs of the steps or something, equivalent to summiting Mount Everest from sea level. All sorts of stuff. So that's just a picture on the right. And then Total Warrior was another one of these crazy events that we did in Leeds. It was an assault course pretty much, which was a few years ago, as you can see. It's quite well trimmed there, and that's 6 packs on gone. Right, anyway, so part of the preparation, we had to commission a young man's services who's here tonight, which I'm going to get him to do a few words, which will give me a break, called Thomas. And he's the breath coach. And it was invaluable, to be honest. Without this preparation, I don't think we would have done it. He simulated high altitude, gave us various exercises, breathing exercises, and helped us kind of just pretty much regulate our breathing and put it into pretty much what we needed for the trek. I'm going to let him explain a little bit more about that. But another image there is me in the middle. We did the Forget-Me-Not colour run in Huddersfield a few years ago as a family, which was quite messy but very fun. You get all sorts of colours in certain places where you don't expect it. And then the Nepal. So my trek to base camp was pretty much, my formula was I wanted to use a company which was locally based. The reason behind that is I wanted the money to stay within the economy rather than you get these companies that are based abroad. They'll book the flights and everything, all the itinerary and the Sherpas and stuff, and not give you any kind of the money never goes back into the Nepalese economy. So this company, the Nepal hiking team, were based in Kathmandu. They were all local. The money stayed within the local economy, and it went back to the local families. So I decided to go with them. Right, so Nepal. I'm going to pass you on to Thomas to I'm going to give him a couple of minutes, 5 minutes to talk while I'm collating my notes and looking busy in the corner. Thomas.
Hello.
Here's Thomas. Please give
Hi,
him a warm
everyone.
welcome.
Hello. Yeah, we'll do actually.
Yeah, that one's
I've
fun.
got two. So.
No, that one's fun.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? Good. So that's me. There I am, the breath coach. So I teach people functional breathing. I don't know if you've heard of a breath
just
coach
hold it a
before.
bit closer.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of a breath coach before? Anyone? Nope. So what I do is I teach people how to breathe. So most people have, through their lifetime, they were born and they had perfect breathing. And then over time, there may have been a trauma as such, or there may have been like a trauma to the face, like a bang in the face or an accident of some sort, and their breathing becomes dysfunctional. So what I do is train people to improve their breathing to feel a lot better in their health, their movement, their performance, etc.
Hold the microphone closer, Thomas.
Okay. So Satnam came to me prior to the event up at Everest, and he wanted to improve his breathing. So with Harvin, we kind of like took all of their information, filled out a form, and he gave me all their stats of their health and fitness, and did a questionnaire and like interviewed them on what they wanted to achieve. And one of them was to achieve altitude training before they went up Everest, so they could handle the altitude. So that's quite difficult to go for. So someone with no training or dysfunctional breathing would struggle when they got to maybe 2,000 meters, 2,500 meters. And what's the height that you went to?
5,400 meters.
Yeah, that's a lot. So if I ask you to now stand, I'm not going to ask you to stand up and do this because it's pretty full on. But if I was to ask you to stand up, cool, and inhale, and then fully exhale, then pinch your nose and walk on the spot for 30 seconds. That is exact. The feeling that you get at the end of that would be mimicking 4,500 meters of altitude training. And that's what Satnam and Harvin had to deal with walking up there. So you become very short of breath. And it's not it's a lack of oxygen in the mix, etc. But the primary driver for you to breathe quickly, no matter what your respiratory rate is now at rest, some of you might have a respiratory rate up at 20 or 25 maybe. What we're aiming for is actually 6 breaths per minute. That would give you maximum health, oxygen delivery, blood flow, etc. But when you go up to that kind of height of altitude, it's the reason you become breathless is the fact that you're walking, obviously, up a steep mountain, and you're exerting yourself. So your body is under a metabolic load. Therefore, it requires more oxygen, and the oxygen is thin in the air. But the carbon dioxide is also very high. And carbon dioxide is a primary driver for you to breathe. So it quickens your breathing, not a lack of oxygen at sea level. So what I did was, with these guys, we incorporated some use of this mask.
You might put it on.
Yeah.
More of a visual.
Yeah, try that.
Makes you feel like Hannibal Lecter. Hold on a minute.
COVID kind of allowed you to wear this out and about.
Can't get it on. Eh?
You forgot how to use it. I don't think you did actually use it.
He did.
There we go. So we can actually hear him breathing a little bit there. If you want, like Darth Vader. So what that's doing is limiting the air coming in. Therefore, and then when he breathes out, he breathes carbon dioxide out, and he breathes that carbon dioxide back in again. So it challenges his breathing at sea level. The other way that we can to mimic altitude training is to do lots of breath holds on the exhale. So lots of kind of inhale, exhale, pinch your nose, walk on the spot. And that mimics it, like I said before, it mimics going up to high altitudes. So we train them both to be able to withstand higher levels of carbon dioxide in their system, which enabled them to enjoy the walk more rather than panting. They had more control over their breathing. They were breathing nasally more than orally. And we took them through, I think it was an 8-week program.
Yeah.
And they saw great results. Like, you know, I'm not sure, is Satnam's wife here?
She is here somewhere.
Is he still snoring? He is. Ah, damn.
Ben's
But one of the
sleeping
things
back.
that we were trying to improve was his foundational health as much as the actual performance up on Everest. And they were amazing students. It was fantastic to work with them. And Satnam's and having great guys. And for Overgate Hospice, it's such a great charity. So yeah, thank you for having me, Satnam.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, thanks, Thomas.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. Thought I'd give myself a break, you know, and delegate a little bit today. But I want to try and get back to the nitty gritty stuff. So I want to talk about what motivated me to go. So travelling up to Everest has always been one of my passions. From the age of about 40, a friend of mine at the back over there with the black cap on suggested that we travel up to Everest Base Camp. And it never actually happened. I think we barely walked up a hill in Romania, didn't we? And went to a salt mine. I think that was our 40th. And so we thought I thought I'd kind of, you know, revisit it and do it. And it's always been kind of, you know, there's a certain level of, you know, energy drawn towards the Himalayas, and a lot of the, as you can see, some of the pictures I've brought back, that was pretty much the scenes and things, and you'll see a lot more yet. Right, I'm going to change the picture. So I'm going to go over the itinerary very quickly, in the sense that gives you a bit of a rough idea as to what we went through. But the whole thing with Everest was I had a lot of apprehension and a bit of anxiety over it, because in 2015 my wife went out to there for a relaxing holiday, met a sister out there, and on day 4 after leaving Kathmandu and going to Pokhara was the major earthquakes. So she's walking around the lake in Pokhara, and I think, what was it, 8 or 9 on the Richter scale, was it? 8 or 9 on the Richter. That was a major earthquake, so the whole place shifted, and there was a lot of devastation. And she was stuck out there pretty much in Pokhara. For the following 6 days, it was quite traumatic for them, with lots of fears of aftershocks, landslides, weakened structures and all that. But they utilised the time well. Her and her sister was out helping people, donating things for people to make makeshift houses and things like that while they were out there. So they kind of, they did help and basically donated to people who needed it. So, I have switched. I'm going back now, haven't I? Sorry. How do you get this back? Left click. It's not doing it. Okay. Right. As you can see, I'm really good with technology. It's almost like the Horizon system. This is, you know, it's perfect. It works every time. So yeah, so I had a bit of anxiety behind it, and obviously taking my son with me to Nepal, always having a bit of a worry regarding earthquakes and things like that, and not to mention, my wife mentioned before we actually flew out, says make sure you bring your son back in one piece, which didn't really help, you know. Is it? Okay, so we prepared for the trek. Obviously, we've spoken about that, and we flew out to Kathmandu on the 2nd of September. On the 2nd of September, it's not doing it, come here, press them buttons. Not doing it on the screen.
No, look, that goes forward. That goes
Oh,
forward.
does it? Okay. What? It's not doing now. Oh, there you go. It's up and down. Is it?
What are you doing?
Right, just over to my technical expert here, who's going to be sorting it out. So yeah, I'm kind of talking. So as you've heard from Thomas, we did a bit of preparation. We did lots of climbs. We did lots of kind of, you know, various physical exercise. Now you're going forward now. There we go.
Use that,
Right, so we landed in Kathmandu on the 2nd of September. We had a couple of days acclimatisation there, where we got met by the beauty of booking the guides was they're waiting for us at the airport with a little placard, you know, like you get them with a little card with our names on, and we didn't have to worry about anything. Just got out, he grabbed our bags, chucked them in there, and took us to the airport, the hotel which they'd booked and everything. So it's all pretty much laid out for us. We didn't have to worry about going around trying to find hotels and taxis and things like that. So transportation was really good. They gave us a couple of days acclimatisation in Kathmandu. So it gave us a day or so to walk around and have a look around there, and to recover from the jet lag. Day 2, we prepped, got all our bags ready, everything like that, because day 3 we're going to fly from Lukla. Lukla Airport, by the way, is quite a bit of a, it's very temperamental. The weather just changes within hours on the other side, so sometimes you can get there and your flights can be cancelled and you can sit there for a day or two before you have to fly back out. So these are a few sites of Kathmandu. Went to a few of the temples. As you can see, the one on the left is evidently the monkey temple up on the top, as you can see. And on the other ones, the sites and the scenes of a lot of these have a lot of them have been restored finally now since the big earthquakes. Some of these were flattened and they've been rebuilt and restored. The temple on the end there, that's an old Buddhist temple. There's a lot of various kind of historical places to see there. I'm terrible with names, I'll be honest with you. That's why a lot of this is written down. My wife will probably tell you the names, but I'm sure she don't want to stand up and talk. Right, and then as you can see, various different sites. This guy here on the left made me laugh when I saw this because it was like a lawnmower's been converted into a tractor. And you can see the lawnmower handles on the top there, and it's really kind of comical. And it was just moving along on its own. I think there's one little stem. And then I had a friend who was an electrician, so I took that picture in the middle there and asked him if he could come out and rewire that for us, because it seems to be a little bit of a mess. And on the end there, outside of one of the large temples, there was a big bell out there, but there was quite a few stores around that square, which I found really one which does gongs, and they do some sort of gong therapy where they put a ball around your head and they whack the ball and it kind of hits at various frequencies, which was really, really relaxing. Right, more temples throughout Kathmandu. This is the Bazaar Square, which a few of these have been restored and rebuilt because these were all demolished during the 2015 earthquakes. There's a lot of detail in a lot of carvings, as you can see from the doors on the right hand side and the one in the middle. I think that was a palace, the one in the middle originally. And on the left, you've got the government building, which has also been built in the Bazaar Square now. That's a relatively new building, but all of the buildings have got so much detail and carvings, and a lot of handiwork has gone into them. Very impressive. And here's some more pictures. Now these first ones here, as you can see, these are carved out of wood. Now the picture on the right hand side is a very interesting one because in Kathmandu they worship a female goddess, a living goddess. So from a young age of, I think, oh God, is it 5 or 6 or something, isn't it? They choose a female goddess and they worship her up until she passes up to the age of first menstrual cycle, I think. So that she's locked up in this building here on the right hand side. You can go in and see her, and she'll come out on the balcony, wait for a few minutes, and then go back in. And that's her whole life, pretty much. And you can't take pictures or anything like that. It's very kind of, I found it quite medievally type thing at one point. And then I thought, well, I think there's just within their belief system, to be honest, it's quite kind of impressive to me because it was so well organized in there. You couldn't even take your phones out or anything like that. And everyone was really, really protective over her. And then when she hits a menstrual cycle, I think they kick her out and just get somebody else. Okay, more pictures of Kathmandu. Kathmandu is basically, it's in almost like a basin within the mountains at the bottom, and the population is growing and growing and growing. And they've actually been, a lot of people do say there's too many people in Kathmandu now. That it's heavily dense, densely populated. And we've got pictures. This was our first attempt, by the way, when we went to Kathmandu airport to fly up to Lukla. The first day we got there, they turned us away. They said the weather is too bad in Lukla and we can't fly. So we stood there scratching our heads, and I was getting frustrated because we'd barely given enough days on either side of the trip to acclimatise and have a rest. These are our bags, by the way, the duffel bags. So I'm stood there thinking, scratching my head, asking of alternative routes, and I managed to somehow convince our tour guides to get us a helicopter ride out the following day. Obviously, we had to claim it from the insurance because we've got cancelled flights, because they were saying the day after it's possible that they might be cancelled as well. So the day after, we kind of geared up to catching a helicopter. So we've got another picture somewhere, the helicopter somewhere. No, I'll come to that later. Some of these pictures, by the way, are quite random. They've thrown in just to kind of break up the routine. I think my son's done that deliberately. So the second day, we caught the helicopter out. There's a picture of it down at the bottom. And these images here were taken from the helicopter ride, it was quite scary. It was like going up in a goldfish bowl. plastic goldfish bowl, pretty much. You know, and you sat there and thinking any minute now the door's going to fly off, or something's going to fly off. It's all the movies you watch. You always see something goes on with the helicopter, and it's never a safe landing, is it? So we're sitting in the helicopter, and the pilot's every so often grabbing the little handle on the side. You know, as you're driving the car, your little handle. He was holding that on there, and I'm thinking, what does he know that I don't know? You know, is he getting ready to jump out any minute now? But it was quite. He had to dodge up and down the clouds just to get through it to get to local airport. But that part of the flight was supposed to be the most scariest because local airport is the most dangerous landing strip in the world, and that's documented. You could Google it right now and find it. The runway goes uphill, so as the planes land, it goes uphill, and there's a bankment at the end. So if it doesn't slow down, you're going to go into someone's bedroom. There's a hotel on the bankment. So if it goes up the bankment, you're going to end up probably having a quick, waking somebody up or something. But there are various images you're going to see of pictures. So as you can see, the landscape and stuff of the various, like Kathmandu, as we're leaving, that's the helicopters, the images from there. Right, another picture there. A couple of pictures there from inside the helicopter. And this in the middle here is our map. So I'm going to be referring to a lot of these places, which half of them I can't pronounce or might pronounce wrong. But as you can see, the red line, that is going to be our planned route. So Kathmandu is right at the bottom here, over to Lukla Airport. And then from Lukla, it's pretty much a trek all the way up and then all the way back down. There are other routes that you can go if you want to go to various other hikes. But that was our basic, the red line there was our planned route. Right. And by the way, if anyone wants any of these pictures, just ping me a text message or something like that and send me a message, and I can always send them you. Right, Lukla Airport. So as you can see, this is where the runway goes up from. And if the plane doesn't stop, you're going to land in that bedroom up there, probably number 3, the window there. The nose of the plane will go into there. So it's a very, very dangerous airport. They've finally cleaned up all the wreckages all around the bottom end of the airport, which is nice. Because it used to be quite, when I saw the documentary, you see all these half planes, bits of planes at the bottom of the thing, which is quite scary at the moment. And I think they called it Tenzin? It'll come back to me anyway. But that's the Hillary and Tenzin Airport. So that's Hillary and Tenzin in the middle image there, and that's the airport building in the background. This is a picture from the hotel where we stayed, well, the tea house where we went for a cup of tea after landing. But that is the whole of the runway, and then the runway comes in from the right-hand side. As you can see, it just dips down. And that's another image. So Lukla is a very nice little quaint place, but we didn't stay there long. We had a quick snack, and we were on our trek straight up. And we were going, so day flight to Lukla, and then we were trekking up to Pak Ding. Pak Ding is 2,652 metres above sea level. We did about 8 kilometres that day. Took us about 3 or 4 hours. It wasn't that bad. So this is the hike going up to our next stage, Pak Ding to Namche. So day 1, we got to Pak Ding, stayed there the night. It was a tea house-ish. It was nice, a few leeches on the wall and stuff like that, but nothing major. It wasn't the Ritz or all like that, but as you can imagine, when you get to that side of Lukla and further up, people only go there during the trekking season. So a lot of them places are locked up and stay pretty much over the 3 months or the 6 months of the year, they're not even open. But we had various temples along the way, and as you can see, the stones, they have prayers on them, which are mainly for well-being, and when you're trekking up the mountains, it's more to give you, basically ask for permission and show your respect to the mountain, which you have to walk past them, walk around them in a certain direction and things like that, which you'll see. The chap in the red rucksack on the right-hand side was our third amigo. So there was 2 of us, me and my son, Harvin, by the way, who served me food. And this is Toby. This is an Australian kid who were kind of squeezed into our group, and then there was 3 of us who was trekking. So he was almost like my unadopted son. He was only about 22-year-old, but he was like in the bridge, the gap between me and my son. So it was all right for them to have a bit of banter and make fun of me when I'm struggling, which was very reassuring. Right, we've got some more pictures here. And these are random, by the way, just thrown in, just to kind of, so just to break off from the boring routine that I'm talking about. Right, all these pictures are from various times of the trek. You could, as you can see on the right hand side, there's waterfalls galore everywhere you looked, and the terrain and the landscape was totally different everywhere. These are later on pictures, which are also just been thrown in at the start. As you can see, we're wearing woolly hats and having to wrap up the higher we went up. But from the bottom, we were walking around in t-shirts for a lot of the time, all the way up to Namche. We're in just t-shirts and just walked up because the weather was just amazing. We did a few practice hikes when we got up to Namche Bazaar. We stayed there for a few hours, a day, and the next day we were doing a acclimatization day. So the acclimatization day was for us to give us practice hikes up to a higher altitude, but then come back down again, which kind of preps your body for the trek further on. And the acclimatization day, it was a hike to a hotel called the Everest View Hotel, which is about 3,962 meters. It wasn't a big trek. It's 3-4 kilometers. Took about 4 hours. We did get to see quite a few various different kind of. We got to see a museum on the way, which had a giant kind of. I don't think we'll come up to that later. They had a recycle. The Nepalese are getting fed up with people going over there throwing plastic bottles and everything. So what they've done is all the Sherpas and all the guides have been collecting up all the bottles, and they made a massive monument of a giant hand made out of plastic bottles with holding loads of plastic bottles. And it is humongous. And I think that's a sign to tell all the tourists and people who come to visit Nepal and obviously do the hike, don't just throw plastic bottles all over the place. Because all the animals do all the transportation, and they'll end up eating something, and somebody will end up, and plastic's not good for anybody really, is it? Talking of plastic, where's my carry bag? Right, so anyway, more pictures, and as we trekked along, there was no clear paths anywhere. As you can see, there are various valleys and mountains that we had to cross, and the picture on the right hand side is a typical bridge that cut across them. Now, it's a wire bridge made of, it might be a steel or some sort of bridge, but they were designed by the Swiss, so I think they knew what they were doing, but they do kind of wobble a little bit. And now, when you try to cross one of them, normally it's fine, but when you try crossing it with a 15-year-old and a 22-year-old who think it's funny to bounce up and down, it's quite very dangerous, and you can't hold the sides of it because there's little bits of metal sticking up, so you're kind of balancing like this, and you're swearing and cursing at them, and you're going, "What the bloody hell are you doing?" And they're just bouncing along and laughing away at you. It was it was very entertaining for them. They definitely got the money's worth. Right, here's Namche Bazaar. Namche Bazaar is very much similar to Hebden in a way. It's a very quaint little place, but it's got so much character, and the people are really, really down to earth and really nice. I mean, I kind of really enjoyed going there, to be honest. I mean, it had bars and all sorts of things, and hotels, and all that. It's the last settlement, proper settlement, before you got further up on the trek. We got to 3,860 meters, so 12,000 feet at this point. So we stayed there the night. The next day we did the acclimatization day, and then we trekked from Namche to Tengboche. Tengboche was a bit of a trek because it's quite a steep trek all the way up. We got to see a few small Sherpa villages. I'll move on from here. That's the hotel we stayed at, Hotel Namche. That's the morning view when you get up in the morning, which you can't really beat that, can you? I mean, okay. Oh yeah, there's that big hand. You see that picture there? These are museums that we did when we went up to Everest View Hotel. So the acclimatization day, it was the Sherpa museum, and it was dedicated to the first female Sherpa who'd summited Everest. But that thing on the right hand side, that is what they made out of plastic bottles, and they put all the plastic bottles in there and threw them all around there. That's what's been collected over the years. It's just a symbol to people to say, look, be mindful pretty much, and don't treat the place like it's your backyard. And entrance to the museum, as you can see on the right hand side, and there's a picture of the first female Sherpa who'd trekked up to Everest. Now, travelling up, everything is on foot, by the way, from Lukla. There's no cars and nothing. The only thing that you can go up in is, see donkeys at the bottom right? Those donkeys, those horses, they were like an ox type of thing. What was the names of them? Yaks, and there was a crossbreed between a cow and a yak as well. They had another one, and it was like a hybrid version. And then also people carry stuff by hand and feet. I mean, this guy here, I was telling you about the guy carrying the fridge in the marathon. This guy here is carrying the fridge freezer on his head. And I had to, he stopped and he was having a break, and I said, look, I felt really sorry for him. But then I looked at him and he's dressed with white trainers on, got jeans on and a white t-shirt. And it was sweltering at the time, and I felt really sorry for him. So I gave him a bit of money and says, can I take a picture? And I think his mate was doing something behind him at the time, but I didn't notice while I was taking the picture. So I just snapped it, and realised afterwards that oops, it's just a good job the fridge freezer was probably positioned just right, I think. So yeah, as you can see, the views are just sensational. You're kind of walking along, and all of a sudden the mountain just pops out of nowhere, and you're mesmerised for ages. And we weren't really given much time, to be honest. We were kind of on a bit of a tight schedule to get to the next site before too late. Anyway, here's some more random pictures of the gang. Toby on the top right, my unadopted son. This chap here next to him was one of our Sherpas. And he carried we both had a duffel bag each, which weighed 15 kgs each. He carried both of our duffel bags. He had one, and the other guide had one. This guy here he's down here on the red, but the other one, he carried the other 215. So they're both carrying 30 kgs each and trekked all the way up. I mean, they were superstars. To be honest, every opportunity was like, we've made them come into the tea houses, play cards with us on the night, and just kind of trekking. And then our guide was a chap on the end called Santosh in the black top. He was really nice, really, really accommodating. And this is a picture from the Everest View Hotel. This is where you get your first views of Lutsi, Nupsi, and the Everest, pretty much. It was a bit cloudy, so you don't really see the full clear picture. And obviously there's a famous Everest Base Camp rock there, which was a bit early, this picture, but I just slapped it in just to kind of break the conversation up. And you've got on the right hand side as well, these are all the points when we've actually done the trek. We're at the top, up to the height of the base camp and Kala Pathar. But I'll come back to talking about them in a minute. Right, so why have we come back to here now? Right, ignore that one. We've talked about this already. Oh, this is the helicopter ride going in. Yeah, as you can see, it's all very organised. We're all smiling away on the back seat here, as you can see. Me being secretly a bit anxious, and as we were trekking all the way up, you would come across these giant rocks which had all the prayers kind of painted onto them, and you had to walk around them on a certain. I think it was clockwise. I think you had to go around them, otherwise you couldn't walk back. Anti-clockwise. I think it was more for good luck, really. I'm going to keep moving on because it looks like we've gone over this one. Right, bridges. There's another image of the bridges. I think that's one of the biggest bridges that were there. There's another picture of that further on, but the waterfalls, there were so many waterfalls all around. You just turn around the corner and it was just a totally different landscape. So you kind of went from green and lush to all of a sudden you kind of go to certain parts. So I think we're back to Namche still now. And then you would go to a bit more barren, and you had the cows and the ox. Well, I call them cows, but they're more bulls, carrying stuff up. You could be walking along, and then all of a sudden a big horde of them were coming along. And the pathways, some of them weren't really kind of cut out. As you can see the picture on the right-hand side, that's one of the pathways. So they were quite, sturdy and everything, but then you had odd random trees just growing in the middle of them, which, you have to move around, but they weren't that hazardous. Then we went from Tengbuche, we went up to Dingbuche. It's about 11-12 kilometres. We're up 4,400 metres now. And we started trekking up to, hang on one moment, let me get the name right, up towards the Khumbu region. So some of the settlements for the Sherpas, this is where the last settlements were. We were kind of getting up to a stage where They only went up there during the hiking season for business and whatever they're running the tea houses and everything. So from this point onwards, people only went there seasonally. Nobody really lived up there. We got all the way up to Dingbuche. Okay, I've missed something out here now. Sorry. Yeah, Kumbu's region. So we were heading up to Tengbuche, which is got the largest monastery there, which we managed to visit, and we stayed there overnight. Crossing the river was quite hazardous. The rivers were really ferocious. You couldn't cross them without going across a bridge. And as you can see on the right-hand side picture, if you stepped into that, you would have been washed away. And they were really kind of ferocious. And like I said, with the landscapes, you went along and then all of a sudden it was just really kind of barren. We were getting to stages where we were getting less lush and more barren. And here's some more pictures up on the way. There's the monastery up on the top left-hand side, which we visited, which is quite relaxing, and that's Tengbuche on there. And this is just around the area. We had the mountain. I think there was a few views of the mountains from our tea house room. I mean, they were getting basic at this point. So you lost all the ability to get warm showers. There were no hot water. Toilets were stick a bucket of water down the toilet to flush it. They were basics. Everything was starting to get a little bit basic at this point. So you weren't supposed to really have showers because it was that cold at night. It was getting down to -3, -4. So you slept with a hat on and things like that. But during the day, it was really nice, as you can see, wearing t-shirts and just walking around like we're in Hebden. Well, now it's starting to change a bit. So we're layering up now. We've got hats on and things like that, and again, it all changes again. So it goes from barren to green and lush again. So we kind of got various different type of landscapes again. And close to the river was really kind of, I didn't really like walking near that. So it tickles the one slip, as you can see in one of these images here. You're not really got much of a room for manoeuvre on that little pathway. One slip and you're gone. Okay, we got up from Tengbuche to Dingbuche, which is quite a high up now, the highest settlement. This is the last place where if anyone summits Everest or in dire need of coming down, this will be the last settlement where they'd bring you down to from there. As you can see on the right, this is all the Khumbu region. So that's the Khumbu Glacier here on the left-hand side. It looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. We were really fortunate because there was no snow at this time of year. So we got to see the actual landscape rather than it being covered with snow. And it was really bizarre. On the left-hand side, it was like that. It was all grey and white. You looked around and you just thought, I feel like I'm on a different planet. You could easily film, that's probably where they filmed the moon landing, to be honest. Sorry. Right, so little helipad there in the middle. And we've got, from the settlement, you start to see the mountains just come out of nowhere. The landscape was starting to spread out a bit and the mountains were taking over, to be honest. A couple of pictures. One thing we found fascinating is everywhere you went, there were these little dogs. Well, they weren't little dogs. They were like Labrador size, but they were just randomly just running wild, but so placid and tame. They would follow you around, and if you gave them any food, that's it. They would follow you till the end of the earth. I'm not joking. I think we gave this one here a little bit of food. Was it this one? And he must have followed us about 10 kilometres. He stuck with us all day, and we were told not to feed him, but we used to have a dog, and when you see one and you're eating something, you think, you can have a little bit, and that was it. His friends for life. Horses, they kept horses at this place because if anyone needed rescuing and they needed to bring it down, or you wanted to pay for a horse to hike you up, and you weren't able to trek up there, you could go back on horseback. But I wouldn't recommend it. I saw a few people on horseback and it was terrible. They were, it's like being on a rodeo show. They were like going like this and that. I thought, any minute now they're gone. And if you fall off there and you hit the ground, you aren't getting back up. You need a helicopter out of there, or maybe on the back of someone. So yeah, the settlements are very basic. They're all just like you've got breeze block and tin roof, and inside it's all just really thin wood. So the accommodation was basic. You slept with all your clothes on, in a sleeping bag with a hat on, and it was cold at night, and there wasn't, you didn't want to do that midnight break to the toilet because it was freezing. It wasn't very enjoyable, but all part of the challenge. You just got on with it, and I think we did our climatization day, and then we hiked up to, what's it called now? Let me get the name right. Nagarjun Hill, which is our second acclimatization day, and the height that we had to trek up to was 5,100 meters. So this is our main test to see whether or not we're at this point here. A lot of the people who do the trek, you either know whether or not you can go further or you don't. So the settlement there on the right on the very right hand side picture is where we stayed. So we climbed up to the top. This is the summit of it on the left hand top left. So we came up from this settlement and we travelled all the way up to the top here. Now, these pictures here, you see on this little rock, I'm going to point these out because you'll see these in magazines. They're usually taken at a better angle than that, because if you take it at an angle, it looks like you're sitting on the edge of a rock, on the edge of a cliff. My camera wasn't as good as that, we just kind of snapped it and quickly got off the rock. But I quite enjoyed them pictures, because when I see them in magazines, when you take it from an angle looking up at it, it does honestly look like you stood at the edge of a cliff. But for me it didn't really work. I tried to do a Superman impression, but the cameraman wasn't all up to it. So yeah, we hiked up to there, and the hot lemon tea at the top of that was so welcoming. It was, at that point, it's 5,100 meters, which is, what's that equivalent to? I don't know. Not got the footage on here. So yeah, the various angles, and that's where we're at that point. So we're prepped, got back down, stayed there over the night, back in there, and then the day, that's just day 8, by the way, when we did that. And then we trekked up for day 9, including the landing, that is Dingbuche to Labuche. This was a trek of 12 kilometres, up to 16,000 feet we were going to trek up to. Started off in the morning towards the Tukla Pass. The Tukla Pass it's very desolate and barren. From here on, you'll only find a few alpine shrubs, trails up towards the Kumbu Glacier and places like that. It was a strenuous, it's a steep uphill ascent. It wasn't easy. The Tukla Pass is where they have a lot of shrines and stones that are built in memory of those climbers who perished, who basically didn't make it back down from going up to base camp, up to the summit of Everest. And a lot of people come from abroad and set up. I think that's the image there. And the bottom middle one there, can see all the stones formations. People would come and put various kind of memorial stones, and there were little placards put up there for various people, which people would just kind of put them as a memorial, I think. Right, no. So, more pictures. As you can see, none of these were taken planned pictures. The majority of them were taken on my iPhone or my son's iPhone, and they were, as you can see, the quality of them are still quite good, but it's breathtaking. To be honest, you could stand there all day and just stare at some of these, and you just don't want to go home. But when you realise that if you don't go home, you're going to freeze to death. You got the middle one, the various times a day. I would just go out and just snap pictures. I think that was from our room, the top middle one, and the other various pictures were from when we were trekking up to there. So as you can see, the barren and the green, it's starting to get a bit heathery now on the right hand side of the pictures. The landscape is getting a bit kind of rocky and treacherous as well. Okay, I'm going to speed through this because, right, so our trek from Dingbuche to Labuche was pretty much the last one before we were going to head over to Everest Base Camp. So we stayed overnight in Labuche in a tea house. By the way, entertainment was playing cards pretty much all night. There was no computers, the Wi-Fi you had for about 20 minutes. At that time, there were a group of students, 30 students from London who were coming, and we used to have to get on their Wi-Fi quickly before they logged on, because the minute they turned up, that was it, the Wi-Fi was gone. They'd pretty much used you know, any little bit of bandwidth. So our final trek from Labuche was to Gorakshep. Gorakshep's the last settlement, which is near base camp. But we just dropped our bags off there and we trekked up. This is a 14-kilometre hike this day. It took us 8 hours, and we hiked all the way up to, well, 5,180 metres, which was at Labuche, up to 5,364 metres, which is Everest Base Camp. It wasn't as spectacular as you imagine, I'll be honest. The whole terrain, because there's no snow, it was all rocks and stones and everything like that. And each one of these pictures I've taken, as you can see, there's people walking along, and it is just walking along a rough path to get to this big stone that everyone stands on and takes the pictures. And they think, on the right hand side, there's the Everest Base Camp signboards and everything like that. These are the two things that you can only see there. There's no spectacular mountains you can see. You look around, it's a bit of an anticlimax, to be honest. But you get there, take the picture, as everyone else does, and you think, right, are we done? And and head back. Obviously, there was a few things that we did want to do. I mean, I was representing our local Sikh temple. As you can see, I got a little flag off them, so and they give me one of their high visors, which happened to only have the emblem on the back, so I had to wear it back to front. That was special. So that was that picture there. That's the little team up on the top there of us getting here in one piece. This picture here is just a picture of me with some little stickers, Bitcoin stickers for a friend of mine at the back there who made me stick them up all the way up to base camp. And the other images are just around surrounding areas. And then this is when we start seeing a bit of snow, by the way. Before this, we hardly saw snow. They were just at the tops of the mountain. And the glacier all along towards base camp is usually treacherous, and it's really deep snow. And as you can see, there's hardly any snow there at all. We were really, really fortunate. And 2 weeks later, they had major landslides and rain and everything like that. So we trekked from base camp. We head back to our accommodation in Gorakshep and stay there the night. And the following morning, we get up really early to summit our first mountain, which is Kala Patthar. So Kala Patthar is 5,460 metres above sea level. And that is pretty much the difficult one. We got up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We had to get all our little equipment, head torches and everything like that. And I mean, I haven't even spoke about this table just yet. There's a few things I'll point out to you in a minute. But that point, we were up at 3 o'clock in the morning, walk with head torches through pitch black. And we had to, it's the only time we had to wear our really big overcoats, which is, because it's -4, I think -5 when we set off in the morning. Pitch black, and we trekked up to the top of Kala Patthar, which is an image. This bottom one here was taken at the top. This picture here was taken at the top of that. So that was to see the sunrise of Mount Everest, see the sun rising behind Mount Everest. This picture up at the top was taken roughly at about 10 past 5, 10 past 6 or something. 10 past 4. Right, okay. I'm going to let him do some talking in a minute. 10 past 4, so the 3 peaks there you see, the middle one is Mount Everest. It's set further back so it doesn't look as big. You got, I think it's Lutsi and Lutsi, is it? One of them two. I'm terrible with names, me. I'll have to look back at my notes. But these are the first images we got to see of Mount Everest. And we summited up to the top of the mountain, got up to the top, and you got to see the whole Himalayan mountain range all running along the bottom there. These pictures were all, this picture here, is this one here on the bottom is very similar to, oh no it's not, I bought this from Namche Bazaar, but I also bought a bigger one, which was a canvas hand drawn, which is this image here, exactly this image with the flagpoles, you know, thing, but it's a lot bigger than this, and I had to make my own frame for it and do my own handiwork. But that's pretty much an image of all the range. You've got, I don't know if you'll see a picture, but there's a mountain in there called Amadablam. I'm going to show you a picture of that in a minute, which is not there. Right, back to pictures. So Everest again on the top left. The picture there behind me is Amadablam in the background, which was the main picture which I used, which is probably one of my most favourite pictures of me stood there with the sticks, but the mountain in the background almost looks photoshopped. I mean, that's always going to be one of my favourites. And then the other mountains were these were all taken at the top of Kalapatar when we'd summited up there. As you can see, we're all pretty happy. This is the pinnacle of the whole trip. You know, we're all smiling and thinking, thank God. And I'm thinking, yeah, let's go home now. Where's the taxi? Ring an Uber. It was difficult, I'm telling you. I struggled all the way up this one. My son and Toby had pretty much already run up to the top and they stood there laughing at us. And me and the guide, Santos. Santos was brilliant. He stuck with me all the way, encouraged me and kept me going, because at this point it was really difficult to breathe, regardless of what training you did. It all goes out the window. You're just literally just struggling to take a step and a breath. I've got a video on my phone which shows me kind of struggling up the hill. Right, I think we're already coming back down now. Anyway, right, I'm going to go back a bit. So, final bit. So, when we summited, what you do is you pretty much head back down to Gorakhshet, where's this last settlement. We pick all our stuff up and when we head back down. So we start trekking back down from Kalapatar, which is 5,545 metres, by the way, 18,000 feet. That was at the summit. And we trekked down to Periche, which is a 14 kilometre walk. Took 7 hours to head back down. That's pretty much, we got up in the morning, 3 o'clock. After we got back to the room, picked our bags up, the guides, our guide's there here in the middle. This chap here is the one who has to lug the 30 kilometres, 30 kgs all the way back down. And I mean, he never, every time you saw him, he had a massive smile on his face. And you know what, they're so content and so, humble, like, it kind of brings you back down to earth and realise that, it's so fortunate. These guys have done so much work. And then I'd had my own little side kind of thing for him. I thought I'm going to give him a tip directly to him rather than let the company pay him. So I took some dollars with me to kind of sneak it in his pocket when no one looking. But it's all part and parcel with each of these guys, because they work locally and stuff. They'll only get paid a certain wage from their boss. And I thought, well, they're going to do a lot more work than the boss. And so I took a load of dollars with me in my pocket. And I thought, when it comes to the end of the trip, I'll just, sneak them a backhander. So heading back down now. So as you can see, you're walking along a bridge and all of a sudden these bulls turn up with all these bags and then you've got to stand to one side. They're so inconsiderate, I'm telling you. And then we headed back down to Namche Bazaar. Now the reason why I want to go back to Namche Bazaar, they had a Yeti bar there. Which, as you can see, the picture of the Yeti there over there, I've got a friend who likes Yetis and stuff, and so I did take a picture of him for him, just so he can, appreciate it. It might motivate him to go up there one day and find his true love. Right, so anyway, trekking back down. Now, bear in mind, this whole trek didn't rain at all. We'd stayed dry the whole lot until the final day of trekking back down from Periche down to, from Namche down to Lukla. It was an 18-kilometre hike going downhill. Supposed to take us 7 hours, and it's rained throughout the whole way. We got drenched down to the point. Actually, there's a picture of us on the bottom there. We had like ponchos on and waterproofs and everything like that, and we were dripping wet. Socks, everything was soaked wet through, but didn't really care, because by the time we got down to Lukla, that was the end of our trek. My boots, I'm going to digress here. Right, so my trusty boots, as you have a look, these boots have done quite a lot of mileage. I've been hiking in them for about 8 or 10 years, thinking, I love these boots, I'm going to take them with me. Did the last hike, 2 of the 3 peaks, me and him, ran up and ran down, I think it's 7 or 8 hours, and then the boots start falling to bits. This is only 2 weeks before the hike, by the way. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So I took them to Timpson's. He tried to glue them, didn't work. Took them somewhere else. They tried to glue them. I stuck loads of super glue in them, and they stuck. They finally, I think they used some, contact adhesive or something, but they stuck. And I thought, right, they're holding. Please hold. So I took, just in case, took me 2 little bottles of super glue with me. Just in case, I thought, just in case what happens, I'm not going to take the risk. And I don't want to buy new boots, because it took me like a month or 2 months to wear them in. So I thought, I'm going to take these. I'll trust them. What happens halfway up? Sole starts coming off. One of them, sole starts coming off the other one. So on a night, while he's fast asleep, there's me precision super gluing the boots. He's fast asleep and I'm there half asleep, and there's fumes are going into my eyes, and I'm like, I'm going like this, like I'm waving from side to side. But I got the boots all. They eventually made it. I think I just used the last bit of the second one coming back down. the second tub of super glue. So them boots have seen some right kind of trick. I mean, the other stuff on there is all just to kind of point out and just to break it off. But as you can see, everywhere I go, I love to buy a t-shirt, and the grey t-shirt on there was one of my souvenirs. Probably go in the cupboard and never get seen again with the rest of them. But I have this obsession with t-shirts and fridge magnets. So, yeah, so the hats, we got a certificate from the Nepal trekking team. Without them sticks, I don't think I would have made it. The walking sticks were pretty much a lifesaver. So back down to the story of getting back to Namche. Namche is like was going to be our resting point. The first time that you could have a hot shower after 4 or 5 days of hiking up and down. So it's that hot shower I was looking forward to, and they had a nice bar with a pool table and a bar. Not to mention this beer, but that was not the point. But you know, it was basically the relaxation point of the whole trek. So we stayed there overnight, trekked right down back to Lukla, got to Lukla, stayed overnight in a guest house there, and waited for our flight in the morning. Now the flight was very interesting. You can see the little plane in the middle picture at the top. Right, that's on the runway again, back to Lukla Airport. Now that plane comes in, they only turn one propeller off on this side of it so that people can get in and out. And can you see the little thing on the middle? The pictures are quite small, but at the front, that's where the bags go in. And they chuck you in from the back. It is like a fairground ride. It's got one seat on either side, and you're pretty much... I'm secretly really... This is the only time I was scared, I'll be honest. The top right-hand picture, can see my face there, and that fake smile, and I'm thinking, bloody, please get me home in one piece. He's not knowing what's going on because he hadn't seen the documentaries. I've seen them all, of the planes going up and, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, please get me out of here. And the bottom right-hand picture, I think we got off at Ramachap Airport, which was afterwards, and I think I must have been kissing the floor then or something like that, or, you know. So the hike back down was quite nice. It was all really kind of downhill, but yeah, like I said, it rained really heavy. So where are we at now? Right, so distance. So by the way, there's a picture of those dogs that would just kind of come and, you know, make friends with us whenever we're eating something. A random picture of a waterfall, which is really nice. These are the prayer wheels that we saw all the way along the trek. These are like Buddhist prayer wheels, which you'd roll along for good fortune. Our diet was pretty much that in the middle. So you had a choice of eating pizzas and all the rest of it, but I thought I'm going to stick to the local diet because they seem to be doing all right. And this is dal bhat. So you've got rice, you've got a curry, you've got like a vegetable curry, and then you've got a green curry, which is like various kind of greens and kale and a few different greens in there. And then you had a little bit of a chili to give you a bit of and a poppadom. That was a daily meal, which, to be honest, you have to prepare for. Because being in this country, you generally get a very varied diet. And I knew that I'm going to have to bring down my diet and condition myself for just normal plain food and less food as well, quantity, because there's hardly any carbs in there and nothing like that. And me being a carb addict and stuff like that, I'm thinking, I can't survive on just rice. You know, I'm going to have to take a naan or something in my pocket and eat that on the side. But yeah, so that was pretty much the diet, which was quite nourishing, to be honest, to help kind of free out everything. Random poster, alcohol. Alcohol, please, because no great story ever started with someone eating a salad. That was just, I found that really funny when I saw it, and I thought, well, yeah, maybe, that could have been the reason why I'm here. And then that is just going to be my photo shoot for when I'm rich and famous, you know, like that one on the end there. So I could do signed autographed pictures of them if you want. Along the way, we met this interesting guy called, what's his name now? Sohan Singh. He's from China. He was a professor in China, gave up being a teacher during COVID, and he was trekking up at the same time as us. So every time we stopped off somewhere, we would meet him and we were talking to him. He's from India, but he's living in China now, and he's become a yoga master. So he'd done a challenge of doing the most amount of advanced yoga poses at highest altitude. Now, I don't know how he managed it, but that's him on top of the base camp rock up on the top right. This is basically, he come back, and within about 4 weeks, he produced a book. And he told me, and then he'd got this world record thing from the Indian government on the right-hand side. And he sent me all these pictures. He goes, believe it or not, they've presented me with this world record. of doing the highest, the most advanced yoga poses at highest highest altitudes. So he keeps in touch with me. He's really entertaining. He's trying to drag me out there again this year. He said, we'll do a Satnam and Sohan tag team partnership. I went, you're all right, mate. Can't even cross my legs, let alone do a yoga pose. So then we got back down to Kathmandu from Lukla. Oh, by the way, Lukla flight was very interesting because the plane starts at the top of the runway. He revs the engine up and he sets off. I've got a video on my phone, but I don't know how to put it on here. And it revs off, sets off from the top of the hill, and 22 seconds later, the runway disappears from underneath your feet. And the drop is, you look down and it is a massive drop going right down to the bottom. And that's where most of the crashes used to happen because the runway's downhill. So the plane would get would actually pick up speed. And by the time it got to the bottom, if it didn't pull up at the right time, it's going, and that's the point where the most dangerous point of the whole trek was. And I was just sat there praying and thinking, please just pull up at the right time, pull that thing there. And the seats were really, really funny because there's one row on either side. And I'll come into a funny picture in a minute, which will cheer you up a bit. But yeah, we'll move on from Sohan. So this yoga guy. So we got down to Kathmandu. And we met a family friend who'd helped my wife during the earthquakes. He's on the bottom left. He took us to his uncle's restaurant in the middle of Kathmandu to have some really traditional Nepalese Nawari food. So Nawaris were the original original people from Nepal. And this is their diet. It was a lot of buffalo meat and stuff like that and things like that. So I tried everything as I do. And he says, oh, you ran the London Marathon? And he says, yeah. He goes, my uncle ran it as well. I said, you what? He goes, yeah. See that guy in the middle? How old does he look? 68 years old. No, 68 was it? 68 years old. And he ran the London Marathon last year when we ran it. And I go, what time did you get? And he got sub 3 hours. And he was running with the elites. And he's the national runner for Nepal that has been running it for the last 25, 30 years. There's a picture of him on the right-hand side. He came 11th place at the Chicago Marathon in 2013. So he still runs them every year. And I was fascinated. And I took a picture with the guy, and I had more grey hair than him. That picture up at the top, can you see that tagger at the top? That's a picture on the London Bridge that we all had. And I saw that, and I went, God, I've got one of them. And it was just so fascinating. The guy was so down to earth and relaxed. And he goes around the world running marathons all the time. And amazing. He looks younger than me. I was really jealous. Anyway, here we go. Right, so back to Lukla Airport. So as you can see, the runway goes downhill here. Number 24 is where you set off, and it goes down. And the end of the runway is at the end of that bit there. And it just goes, it's just a mountain underneath. It's a drop. So I'm secretly scared, right? But if you look at the air stewardess on the right-hand side picture, I think she's actually ready to go to the toilet at that point. I was scared, but she was really scared, And obviously him not knowing that, Harvey not knowing what's ahead of him, he's just like smiling at me and stuff like that. But, that picture really made me laugh. But then I contained my fear. She was like, she was extremely scared. So here's some more random pictures. So of the trek, Amadablam, which was on our sunrise pictures. The sun rising up behind it. We have Everest, the sun just peeking up behind Everest. Trekking up there, there were benches. Ironically, the benches were made from recycled plastic. And there's a picture of me underneath the famous base camp banner thing. And other random pictures of the various scenes of around there. Like I said, you can all have copies of these pictures. All you just got to do is contact me. And thank you for listening. So, I would normally, at this point, give the microphone to my son to make him say a few words. I did do last time, but he's had a 5-hour exam today, and he's got a 5-hour exam tomorrow. So I might just let him off. My nephew stepped in playing the dole and stuff like that, So, but I would do want to say thank you to everyone who's been here to this evening to support me and stuff. Please feel free to have a look at the pictures. I'm going to quickly run over these. Some of these pictures what I bought out there because the handcraft is amazing out there, and the people barely earn anything. So I thought I'd support them and buy some of their things. But the photographs, by all means, have a look through them all. You can you can help yourself to some of them photographs, to be honest. It was the pictures at the back I was referring to, them three, and they're big in there. Take a look. Please feel free. There's buckets all over. Any loose change, chuck them in there, because it's all going to overgate. Thank you for coming.